The house was quiet, the kind of silence that fills a space after the truth has been told. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling slightly as she stared at the letter in front of her. It was a letter she had never intended to write, but now that it was done, it felt both like a confession and a plea. Across the table, her daughter, Emma, sat in stunned silence, the weight of Sarah's words hanging heavy in the air between them. For years, Sarah had told herself that what she had done was for the best. She had convinced herself that shielding Emma from certain parts of her past was a kindness, a way to protect her from the pain and confusion that the truth would inevitably bring. But now, as she looked at her daughter's face, her wide, disbelieving eyes, her mouth set in a tight line, Sarah knew that what she had done wasn't protection. It was theft. She had stolen Emma's childhood in ways that were irreparable. Emma was 20 now, old enough to ask the hard questions, old enough to sense when something wasn't right. And for the past few months, she had been asking those questions with more urgency, piecing together fragments of her life that didn't quite fit, pushing Sarah to explain the things that had been left unsaid for so long. Sarah had resisted for as long as she could. She had offered vague reassurances, half-truths, hoping it would be enough to satisfy Emma's curiosity without unraveling the fragile story she had built around their lives. But it hadn't worked. The questions kept coming, and eventually, the truth could no longer be avoided. And now, that truth lay bare between them, exposed like an open wound. "I don't understand," Emma said finally, her voice breaking the silence. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Sarah swallowed, her throat tight. "I thought I was protecting you," she whispered. "I thought that if I kept it from you, you'd be able to grow up without the weight of it hanging over you. I didn't want you to be burdened by it." Emma's brow furrowed, her confusion palpable. "But how could you keep something like this from me? I had a father and you never told me. You let me believe he abandoned us, when he didn't even know I existed." Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the sting of her daughter's words. This was the truth she had hidden for so long. Emma's father hadn't abandoned them. He hadn't disappeared from their lives because he didn't care. He had disappeared because Sarah had made sure he never knew Emma existed. It had been her choice, a decision she had made in the early days of motherhood, terrified and alone. Emma's father, Michael, had been the love of Sarah's life, but their relationship had been tumultuous, filled with ups and downs. When Sarah found out she was pregnant, Michael had already left, chasing a career opportunity in another country. She hadn't told him about the baby, convinced that he wasn't ready for the responsibility, convinced that their on-again, off-again relationship would crumble under the weight of parenthood. So she had made the decision to raise Emma on her own. She had told her daughter that her father had left and never looked back. And for years, she had believed that it was the right thing to do. But as Emma grew older, the lies became harder to maintain. Emma had always wondered about her father, always asked why he had left, why he had never tried to reach out. And every time, Sarah had offered the same carefully crafted lie. He wasn't ready for us. It had been easier to say that than to explain the truth. I made the decision for him. Now, sitting across from her daughter, Sarah could see the betrayal in Emma's eyes. She had robbed Emma of the chance to know her father, to have a relationship with him, to understand the part of herself that came from him. And there was no way to give that back. "I didn't want you to grow up feeling unwanted," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "I didn't want you to think that your father didn't care about you." "But he did care," Emma said, her voice rising in frustration. "He never had the chance to know me because you didn't give him one. You took that choice away from him. And from me." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. I know, and I'm so sorry. I thought I was doing what was best, but I see now that I was wrong. I was afraid that he wouldn't be the father you needed, afraid that he wouldn't want us." Emma shook her head, her hands clenched into fists. "But you didn't even give him the chance. You didn't give me the chance to know him. You made that decision for both of us." The truth of Emma's words cut deep, and Sarah felt the full weight of her guilt settle over her. She had spent years justifying her actions, telling herself that she had been protecting her daughter. But the reality was far more complicated. She had been protecting herself from the possibility of rejection, from the messiness of their relationship, from the fear that Michael might not have wanted to stay. And in doing so, she had stolen something irreplaceable from Emma. "I don't know what to say," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "I can't undo what I've done. I can't give you back those years. All I can do is tell you the truth now, and hope that someday, you'll be able to forgive me." Emma looked down, her face a mixture of anger, sadness, and confusion. "I don't even know how to feel right now," she said softly. "I grew up believing one thing, and now everything's different. I don't know how to forgive that." Sarah's heart ached at the words, but she knew they were deserved. She had spent years creating a version of the truth that suited her, a version that had denied Emma the chance to know her father, to have that part of her life. And now, the consequences of that choice were staring her in the face. "I understand," Sarah said quietly. "You don't have to forgive me, not now. Maybe not ever. But I'm here, and I'm ready to answer your questions, about your father, about anything. I'll tell you everything you want to know." Emma was quiet for a long time, her gaze fixed on the table. Finally, she looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and uncertainty. "Where is he now?" Sarah swallowed hard. "He's still in London. He's married now. He has a family." The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of lost years. Emma's expression tightened, and Sarah could see the pain in her eyes. Do you think you would want to meet me?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah's throat tightened. "I don't know, but I think he deserves the chance to know you. And I think you deserve to know him." Emma nodded slowly, her emotions still swirling. "I need time to process this. I don't know if I'm ready to meet him, but I want to know more about him, about what he was like." Sarah felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. "I'll tell you everything," Sarah said, her voice steady. "Everything I should have told you years ago." They sat in silence for a long time after that, the air still heavy with the weight of the confession. Sarah knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that there were wounds she couldn't heal with a simple apology. But she also knew that she had taken the first step toward mending the relationship with her daughter. The truth was out now, no longer buried under years of lies and fear. And though it had cost her dearly, Sarah knew that it was the only way forward. For Emma, the stolen childhood could never be returned. But maybe, just maybe, they could begin to rebuild what had been lost. Together.